I'm Nathan, 32, founder of Horizon Tech Solutions. 2 years ago, I stood at the altar, watching the church door, waiting for my parents to arrive. They never showed up. My sister's engagement party the month before? They rented a luxury yacht worth more than my entire wedding budget. That day changed everything about how I see family, success, and self-worth. The empty chairs on my side of the church taught me something money can't buy. Before I tell you how this betrayal transformed my life, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I built a multi-million-dollar company they now desperately want to be part of. Growing up in Lexington, a quiet Boston suburb, I always knew something was different about my place in the family. Our house was modest, a 3-bedroom colonial with a small backyard where my father Thomas would grill on Sundays, while my mother Eleanor fussed over my younger sister Stephanie. From my earliest memories, there was a clear pattern. Stephanie was the golden child, and I was, well, the other one. When I was 7, I saved my allowance for 3 months to buy a model rocket kit. The day I finally had enough, my sister broke her doll. My parents took my savings to buy her a new one, a more expensive one. Your sister is sensitive, Mom explained. She needs these things more than you do. You're so independent, Nathan. That phrase, "you're so independent," became the excuse for everything they wouldn't do for me. For my 10th birthday, I asked for a computer. My parents said it was too expensive. 6 months later, Stephanie mentioned she might like to try computer games, and suddenly we had a brand new desktop in the house. It was technically for the family, but it lived in her bedroom. When I asked to use it for a school project, I had to negotiate for time slots. Stephanie's needs always came first. When I made honor roll, there would be a quick good job at dinner. When she passed a test she had been struggling with, there was cake and calls to grandparents. I learned to celebrate my achievements privately, to find validation within myself, rather than seeking it from them. My father worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, steady and reliable, much like how he expected me to be. My mother was an administrative assistant at an insurance company, but her real job seemed to be managing Stephanie's life. I remember once overhearing my mother on the phone with a friend. "Nathan's fine. He always figures things out. Stephanie needs more guidance." By high school, I had accepted my role. I got a job at 16, working at the local hardware store after school and weekends. I saved every penny for college, knowing that despite my parents' comfortable income, I would be largely on my own. Meanwhile, Stephanie went through 3 different hobbies in a single year: horseback riding, photography, and pottery, each requiring expensive equipment that now gathered dust in our basement. Getting into MIT was the proudest moment of my young life. I still remember holding the acceptance letter, hands shaking. My parents' response? "That's going to be expensive. Are you sure you wouldn't prefer state university like your father?" Stephanie was still 2 years away from college, but they were already talking about the importance of having money set aside for her future. The unspoken message was clear. Her future mattered more than my present. I worked 3 jobs through college: mornings at a coffee shop near campus, evenings doing tech support, and weekends building websites for local businesses. I lived on ramen and slept 4 hours a night. Meanwhile, Stephanie got accepted to a private liberal arts college with half my academic credentials. My parents dipped into their savings to help with her tuition, something they had told me they simply couldn't do. "Your sister isn't like you," my father explained when I finally confronted him about it. "She's not good with money. She needs our support. You've always been able to handle things on your own." It wasn't a compliment. It was an excuse to give her everything, and me nothing. Despite everything, I excelled at MIT. I found my passion in software development and data analytics. While other students talked about joining Google or Microsoft after graduation, I knew I wanted to build something of my own. My professors saw potential in me, even if my family didn't. One in particular, Professor Marshall, became the mentor I never had in my father. It was during my final year at a startup weekend event that I met Jessica. She was studying marketing at Boston University and had the most brilliant insights about customer acquisition. Where I saw code and functionality, she saw people and needs. We complemented each other perfectly. Our first conversation lasted 6 hours. And by the end, I knew she was special. We exchanged numbers and met for coffee the next day, and the next. And soon we were inseparable. Jessica came from a family so different from mine it almost gave me culture shock. Her parents, Robert and Marie, welcomed me immediately. The first time I visited their home for dinner, Robert asked thoughtful questions about my business ideas. Marie sent me home with leftovers and a hug. They actually listened when I spoke. It was disorienting and wonderful, all at once. After graduation, I took a coding job at a financial tech company while working evenings and weekends on my own software idea, a platform that would revolutionize how small businesses handled inventory management and supply chain logistics. Jessica believed in me completely. When I doubted myself, she reminded me of my vision. When I hit roadblocks, she helped me find different approaches. Our apartment became command central for my startup. Our living room was covered in whiteboards and sticky notes. Jessica would bring home market research from her job at a marketing firm. We barely slept, but we were building something together, not just a business but a partnership. The first year was brutal. I coded until my eyes burned. Jessica used her marketing skills to help me create the perfect pitch deck. We ate dollar pizza and counted pennies. Every rejection from potential investors hurt, but we kept going. When I finally secured my first round of funding, $500,000 from an angel investor who saw the potential, Jessica and I danced around our tiny kitchen at 3 a.m. That funding allowed me to rent a small office space and hire 2 developers to help build out the platform. Jessica continued at her marketing job, but spent evenings helping me refine our brand strategy. Slowly, Horizon Tech Solutions began to take shape. We launched our beta with 15 small businesses in Boston. The feedback was incredible. We were solving real problems that no other software addressed. I hoped, foolishly perhaps, that my parents might finally take notice. I invited them to our small launch party. They came, an hour late, and spent most of the time telling anyone who would listen about Stephanie's new job at a fashion magazine in New York. My father glanced at my presentation slides and asked if this was just a phase before I got a real job. Jessica squeezed my hand under the table as I swallowed my disappointment. As Horizon grew from 3 employees to 15, as we moved to a larger office space, as industry publications began to take notice of our innovative approach, my parents remained indifferent. Successes were met with, "That's nice, dear," while conversations inevitably turned to Stephanie's latest accomplishment. Usually something minor like being mentioned in a colleague's Instagram post, or finding a good deal on a designer purse. Jessica witnessed all of it but encouraged me to maintain the relationship. "They're your family," she would say. "Maybe they just don't understand what you're building." Her kindness made me love her even more. But deep down, I was beginning to wonder if my family would ever truly see me. After 3 years together, I knew Jessica was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. Our relationship had weathered the storms of startup life, the constant uncertainty, the late nights, the tight budgets. Through it all, her belief in me never wavered, and my admiration for her only grew stronger. I planned the proposal meticulously. I took her back to the University Innovation Center, where we'd first met during that startup weekend. I'd arranged with the building manager to have access to the room where we'd talked until dawn about our dreams. I filled it with fairy lights and photos documenting our journey together. When she walked in, her hands flew to her mouth. "This is where it all began," I told her, getting down on one knee. "The best startup I ever launched was us." I opened the ring box, revealing a modest but beautiful diamond ring that had taken me months to save for. "Jessica Marie Bennett, will you be my co-founder in life?" Her yes was immediate, her tears genuine. We called her parents from the car, still giddy with excitement. Robert and Marie's joy erupted through the speakerphone. Congratulations, questions about dates, offers to help. Marie was already talking about venue options before we'd hung up. Then we called my parents. My mother answered with her typical distracted tone. "Oh, that's nice, honey," she said after I shared our news. There was a pause. "Have you thought about how expensive weddings are these days?" No congratulations. No excitement. Just an immediate concern about money. Money that she assumed I would ask them for. "We'll manage," I said, Jessica's hand tightening around mine. "We're thinking of keeping it small anyway." "That's probably wise," my mother replied. "Oh, did Stephanie tell you she's been seeing someone new?" "He's in real estate development. Quite successful." The rest of the conversation followed the familiar pattern. Brief acknowledgement of my news, followed by extended updates about Stephanie. Jessica's smile never faltered, but I could see the hurt in her eyes on my behalf. We began planning a modest but meaningful wedding. Jessica's parents offered to contribute what they could. My company was doing well enough that we could handle most of the expenses ourselves. We found a charming historic church in Cambridge and a restaurant with a private event space for the reception. Nothing extravagant, but perfect for us. Then, just 4 weeks after our engagement, Stephanie called with her big news. She was engaged to Bradley Phillips, the son of a wealthy real estate developer she'd been dating for all of 6 months. My parents' reaction was night and day compared to their response to my engagement. My mother called me, breathless with excitement. "Your sister is engaged. We're so thrilled. The Phillips family is talking about a spring wedding at the Four Seasons. Can you believe it?" I congratulated Stephanie sincerely when we spoke. Despite everything, I didn't resent my sister. She was a product of our parents' favoritism as much as I was. Her fiancé seemed nice enough the one time we'd met, if a bit entitled. I was genuinely happy she'd found someone. What I couldn't stomach was the stark difference in my parents' reactions to our engagements. My mother called daily with updates about Stephanie's wedding plans. She mentioned casually that she and my father were adjusting their retirement contributions to help pay for Stephanie's dream wedding. "We want her day to be special," my father said when I expressed concern about their finances. "You understand. You've always been practical about these things." There it was again. My supposed self-sufficiency being used against me. Being responsible and independent had become my greatest sin in this family. Wedding planning continued. Jessica and I chose simple invitations. My mother complained they weren't as sophisticated as Stephanie's custom-designed stationery. We selected a reasonable catering package. My father remarked that the Phillips family was flying in a chef from Italy for Stephanie's wedding. Every choice we made was compared unfavorably to Stephanie's extravaganza. It was death by 1,000 cuts. The hardest conversation was asking my father to walk me down the aisle. I'd rehearsed what to say, wanting to express how much it would mean to me despite our complicated relationship. "Dad, I'd really like you to walk me down the aisle," I said during a rare phone call where he was the one who answered instead of Mom. There was a pause. "Well, I suppose I could do that. Will the ceremony be long?" "Stephanie's asked me to get fitted for a custom tuxedo for hers, and I'll need to schedule that around the same time." "Not I'd be honored." "Not of course, son. Just logistics and another reminder of Stephanie's competing event." "It's a standard ceremony," I replied, swallowing my disappointment. "About 30 minutes. "All right then," he said. "I should be able to make that work." I hung up feeling like I'd asked him to review my tax returns rather than participate in one of the most important moments of my life. Jessica noticed my mood when I returned to the living room. "That bad?" "He'll do it," I said. He made it sound like he was agreeing to pick up dry cleaning. She sat beside me, her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I wish they could see how amazing you are." "Sometimes I think they're physically incapable of it," I replied. As our wedding date approached, the contrast between our treatment and Stephanie's became even more pronounced. The breaking point came with the engagement parties. Jessica's parents hosted a warm, thoughtful dinner for us at their home. They'd invited our closest friends and prepared all our favorite foods. Robert made a heartfelt toast that brought tears to my eyes. For the first time, I felt what it must be like to have parents who were genuinely proud of you. 2 weeks later came Stephanie's engagement party. My parents had rented a luxury yacht to cruise Boston Harbor for the evening. The cost must have been astronomical. When Jessica and I arrived, we discovered we'd been seated at the farthest table from the family, next to Bradley's distant cousins whom we'd never met. My parents spent the evening circulating among the Phillips family, beaming with pride. During the dinner, I overheard my mother talking to Bradley's mother. "We're just so excited about this union. Stephanie's wedding will be the event of the year. We've been saving for her special day her whole life." Jessica found me at the railing later, staring out at the Boston skyline. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I just realized something," I said. "No matter what I achieve, no matter what I do, I will never be enough for them. And I'm done trying to be." The drive home was quiet. Jessica tried to comfort me, but we both knew a line had been crossed. What I didn't know was that the worst was yet to come. The week before our wedding was a blur of final details and vendor confirmations. Despite everything, I was excited. Jessica was my family now, her and the community of friends and colleagues we'd built together. Her parents had been more supportive and loving throughout this process than mine had ever been. I'd mostly stopped expecting anything from my parents, but they had RSVP'd yes to the wedding. My father had reluctantly attended the rehearsal dinner via video call, claiming a work commitment kept him from being there in person. Stephanie had been complaining about her bridesmaid dress for weeks but had finally stopped when Jessica, with infinite patience, found her a different style that met her approval. The Wednesday before our Saturday wedding, Stephanie called. I expected another complaint about the wedding party schedule or her hair appointment. "Hey, there might be a problem with this weekend," she said, her voice carrying that familiar tone she used when she was about to get her way. "What kind of problem?" I asked, instantly tense. "So, Bradley's parents are organizing this super exclusive yacht tour on Saturday to check out options for our wedding after party. It's like a really big deal. They're considering buying one." I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. "Stephanie, Saturday is my wedding day. You know that." I know, she said quickly. "But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. These yacht dealers are coming in specially from Monaco. The Phillips family is really important to them." My blood ran cold. "Are you seriously telling me you're planning to skip my wedding to look at boats?" "Don't be so dramatic. It's not just boats. It's networking with the Phillips family. Mom and Dad think it's really important for all of us to be there, for family unity with our future in-laws." I hung up. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Surely my parents wouldn't actually skip my wedding for this. I called my mother immediately. She answered on the 6th ring. "Nathan, I'm in the middle of picking up some things for the weekend. Are you planning to miss my wedding for a yacht tour?" I interrupted, my voice shaking. The pause told me everything before she even spoke. "Honey, we're really in a difficult position here," she began, her tone falsely sympathetic. "The Phillips family is very important, and this opportunity is significant for Stephanie's future. Bradley's father specifically requested that we all attend as a family. It's my wedding day," I said, the words feeling surreal leaving my mouth. "I know, and we're very sorry about the timing conflict. But you've always been the independent one. You understand the importance of connections and opportunities." There it was again. My independence being used as a weapon against me. "So you're choosing Stephanie's future in-laws over being present for the most important day of my life?" I needed to hear her say it explicitly. "Nathan, don't make this harder than it already is. We've raised you to be practical. This isn't about choosing anyone over anyone else." But it was. It always had been. "Dad too?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Of course. We need to present a united front to the Phillips family." I ended the call without saying goodbye. I sat in my home office, staring at the wall for what must have been hours. This was beyond favoritism, beyond unfairness. This was a complete erasure of my significance in their lives. Jessica found me there, still sitting in the dark. One look at my face told her something was terribly wrong. When I explained in a hollow voice what had happened, her expression shifted from concern to outrage. "They can't do this to you," she said fiercely. "This is unforgivable." "They already have," I replied. "We could postpone," she suggested, taking my hands. "Find another date when they're not busy with Stephanie's life?" I shook my head. There will always be something more important than me. There always has been. Jessica knelt in front of me. "Then we do this without them. We have each other. We have my family. We have our friends. Those are the people who deserve to be there anyway." Her certainty steadied me. She was right. I'd been seeking validation from people incapable of giving it my entire life. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I'm marrying you, Nathan, not your family. I want to be your wife on Saturday, with or without them there." I called Jessica's parents that night to explain the situation. Their immediate response was everything my parents wasn't. "This is outrageous," Robert said, genuine anger in his voice on my behalf. "What can we do to help?" Marie was practical and supportive. "Robert will stand in for your father if you'd like, Nathan. And we'll make sure the seating is arranged, so no one notices any empty spots." Their immediate rallying around me was both healing and heartbreaking, showing me what I should have had all along. The morning of our wedding, I woke up to a text from my sister. It was a selfie of her, my parents, and the Phillips family on the deck of an enormous yacht, champagne glasses raised. "Having an amazing day. Hope yours goes well too." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. As I was getting dressed in a small room at the church, my phone rang. It was my mother. For a brief, hopeful moment, I thought perhaps they had changed their minds. "Nathan, just wanted to wish you well today," she said. Her voice nearly drowned out by the sound of boat engines and laughter in the background. "Thanks," I said, unable to muster more. "We'll catch up next week when things settle down. The yacht is absolutely magnificent. The Phillips really know how to—" I hung up. In that moment, I made a decision that would alter the course of my relationship with my family forever. I was done. Done seeking their approval. Done accepting scraps of attention. Done making excuses for their behavior. My wedding day would be the first day of my new life. One where I valued myself enough to walk away from people who didn't. The church looked beautiful. Jessica had worked with her mother to decorate it with simple elegance. White roses and greenery. Candlelight creating a warm glow throughout the space. I stood at the front with Derek, my best friend from college, who had become Horizon's COO, by my side as best man. I couldn't help but notice the asymmetry of the seating. Jessica's side was full. Extended family, childhood friends, colleagues. My side was sparse, primarily friends from MIT and Horizon employees. Jessica's mother had thoughtfully asked some of their family to sit on my side to balance things out, but the absence of my parents and sister was glaringly obvious. Then the music changed, and Jessica appeared at the back of the church. Her father Robert beside her, beaming with pride. In that moment, nothing else mattered. She was radiant, her smile lighting up the room, her eyes fixed on mine as if no one else existed. When they reached the altar, Robert hugged me tightly. "We're proud to have you in our family, son," he whispered before placing Jessica's hand in mine. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotion. When it came time for our vows, I had to take a deep breath to steady myself. "Jessica, you saw me when I felt invisible. You believed in me when I struggled to believe in myself. Today, I promise to build a life with you, based on respect, partnership, and unconditional love. I promise to create with you the kind of family that celebrates achievements big and small, that shows up for important moments, that values presence over presence. You've taught me what real family feels like, and I will spend my life making sure you feel as loved and valued as you've made me feel. Tears slid down Jessica's cheeks as she squeezed my hands. Her vows were equally moving, acknowledging without directly mentioning the empty seats, the journey we'd been on, and the future we would build together. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, the cheers from our assembled friends and Jessica's family filled the church. Walking back down the aisle, Jessica whispered, "We did it. We're family now. Officially." The reception was held at a restaurant overlooking the Charles River. The space was intimate and perfect for our 60 guests. Jessica's father gave a toast that brought me to tears. When Jessica first told us about Nathan, he said, glass raised. She described him as the most determined, brilliant, and kind man she'd ever met. Getting to know him these past years has proven she was right, but she left something out. He's also the most deserving of love. Jessica, you chose well. Nathan, while we may not have been there from the beginning of your story, we are honored to be part of its most important chapters going forward. Welcome to the family, son. There was a moment during the reception when it all caught up with me. I stepped outside onto the small balcony overlooking the water, needing a minute alone. Jessica found me there, as she always did when I needed her most. "Hey, husband," she said softly, slipping her arm through mine. "Hey, wife," I replied, managing a smile despite the complicated emotions swirling inside me. "You okay?" I considered lying, saying everything was fine, but we'd promised honesty always. "I'm happy. Incredibly happy to be married to you," I said. "But I'm also—" I struggled to name the feeling. "Mourning," she finished for me. "It's okay to mourn the family that should have been here." I nodded, a lump in my throat. "But Nathan," she continued, turning me to face her. "Look in there." She gestured toward the reception. "That's our family now. The people who choose us, who show up, who celebrate our joy. That's what matters." She was right. I kissed her, pouring all my complicated emotions into it. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful for it." We returned to our guests, dancing and celebrating until the early hours. By the end of the night, the empty seats at the beginning had been forgotten in the fullness of what we did have. 2 days later, we left for our honeymoon. 2 weeks in Greece, island hopping and disconnecting from technology. It was exactly what we needed. Santorini's blue waters and white buildings, Crete's ancient ruins, Athens' vibrant energy. We absorbed it all, making new memories unmarred by family drama. We had long conversations on beach loungers and over bottles of wine about family, boundaries, and healing. Jessica never pushed me to forgive or reconcile, only supported me in finding peace. "Whatever you decide about your relationship with them going forward," she said one evening as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony in Mykonos, "I'll support you. If you want to cut ties completely, if you want to try to rebuild with conditions, if you want something in between, it's your choice." By the time we returned to Boston, I'd made my decision. I wouldn't cut my family off completely, not yet, but I would establish firm boundaries. No more accepting scraps of attention. No more pretending their behavior wasn't hurtful. No more being the only one trying to maintain the relationship. 3 days after our return, the first text from my mother arrived as if nothing unusual had happened. "Hope you had a nice wedding and honeymoon. When can we see the photos?" Stephanie's wedding planning is in full swing. She's considering the Plaza in New York. I waited a day before responding, carefully crafting my message. Jessica and I had a beautiful wedding and honeymoon, despite the noticeable absence of my family. I need some time and space to process the hurt of you choosing to skip my wedding for a yacht tour. When you're ready to acknowledge how hurtful that decision was and have a real conversation about our relationship going forward, I'll be open to talking. The response was immediate and predictable. "I'm sorry you feel hurt, but you've always been independent. We had a prior commitment we couldn't break. I hope you won't hold a grudge over one day. One day. My wedding day reduced to one day that I should just get over. I didn't respond. 2 days later, the voicemails from Stephanie began. "You're being completely ridiculous and selfish," her first message began. "Mom is upset because you're giving her the cold shoulder. It was just a scheduling conflict. Stop being so dramatic." Then, "Seriously, Nathan, grow up. Not everything is about you. The Phillips are important connections for all of us. You have no idea the opportunities they can open up." And finally, "Fine. Be that way. When you're done with your little tantrum, let us know." After the third voicemail, I blocked her number. Then my parents. Then I changed my email address, creating a new one, only for professional contacts and friends. I didn't announce my decision to cut contact. I simply removed myself from their orbit and focused on building the life I deserved. The months following our wedding marked a new chapter. Without the drain of trying to win my family's approval, I channeled that energy into Horizon. Jessica and I created a weekly schedule that balanced ambition with quality time together. Monday strategy meetings at Horizon turned into date-night dinners. Saturday mornings reviewing code became afternoon walks along the Charles River. Freed from the emotional weight I'd carried my whole life, my creativity flourished. I developed a breakthrough feature for our inventory management software that predicted supply chain disruptions before they happened. Beta testing showed a 98% accuracy rate, unprecedented in the industry. When I presented the feature to our largest prospective client, a national retail chain, their CTO leaned back in his chair and said, "This changes everything." We closed a $2 million contract that day. Within a month, 3 more major clients signed on. We expanded rapidly, moving from our modest office to an entire floor in a downtown building with views of the harbor. Our team grew from 15 to 45. Derek, who had been with me since the beginning, took on the role of COO officially, managing our growing staff while I focused on product development and key client relationships. Jessica's career was soaring too. Her marketing firm made her a partner after she brought in 3 major accounts. We celebrated her promotion with a weekend trip to Maine, staying at a coastal bed and breakfast, and drinking champagne on a private beach. "We should do this more often," she said, watching the waves. "Celebrate our wins together." "Agreed," I replied. "No more downplaying achievements or waiting for validation from people who won't give it." Our social circle evolved naturally. Weekly dinners with Jessica's parents became a cherished tradition. Her mother Marie taught me her secret pasta sauce recipe, declaring me an honorary Italian despite my distinctly non-Italian heritage. Her father Robert and I bonded over woodworking projects in his garage workshop. My friendship with Derek deepened beyond work. His wife Layla and Jessica became close, and we often spent weekends together exploring New England or having game nights at each other's homes. We built connections with other startup founders in Boston, forming a support network of people who understood the unique challenges of building something from nothing. I also found unexpected healing in a support group for adults from difficult family backgrounds. Dr. Harrison, the psychologist who facilitated the group, helped me understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault, and that their inability to love me appropriately was their limitation, not mine. "You've been seeking validation from people incapable of giving it," he observed during one session. "That's like trying to draw water from a dry well. It's time to find new wells." I took his words to heart, focusing on relationships that were reciprocal and nurturing. For the first time in my life, I felt seen and valued for who I actually was, not for what I could achieve or provide. Horizon's growth accelerated beyond our projections. A feature in Tech Innovator magazine called our software revolutionary, and me, a visionary leader in supply chain technology. When the article came out, I half expected to hear from my parents. Surely, a national publication would finally make them take notice. Nothing. The silence confirmed I'd made the right decision in cutting contact. We began receiving acquisition offers, first from mid-sized tech companies, then from industry giants. I turned them all down. This was my vision, my creation, and I wanted to see how far we could take it on our terms. By our first wedding anniversary, Horizon had offices in London and Singapore. We were redefining inventory management globally, with a client list that included Fortune 500 companies and nimble startups alike. Our Boston headquarters expanded to 3 floors, with a rooftop garden where employees could work or relax. It was during our anniversary dinner at the restaurant, where we'd held our reception, that Jessica shared life-changing news. "I have an anniversary gift for you," she said, sliding a small box across the table. Inside was a positive pregnancy test. "We're having a baby," she whispered, her eyes shining. Joy, unlike anything I'd ever experienced, flooded through me. I moved around the table to hold her, both of us laughing and crying simultaneously. "I'm going to be a father," I said, the words both terrifying and exhilarating. "The best father," Jessica confirmed. "Nothing like..." She stopped herself. "Nothing like my father," I finished. "I know. I'll make sure of it." That night, we talked about the kind of parents we wanted to be. Present, supportive, celebrating our child's unique path, rather than forcing our expectations. I made a silent promise to my unborn child that they would never question their place in my heart, the way I had questioned mine in my parents. The pregnancy coincided with Horizon reaching a $50 million valuation. We bought a house in Winchester, a suburb with excellent schools and a strong community feel. It was more than we needed. 4 bedrooms, a large yard, a home office for each of us, but we wanted room to grow our family. As Jessica's due date approached, our marketing team proposed a billboard campaign to increase brand awareness. The concept featured my photo alongside our tagline, "Horizon Tech Solutions. See beyond your supply chain." I approved the designs without much thought, focused on preparing for the baby and managing our international expansion. What I didn't realize was that one of those billboards would be placed on the highway near my parents' neighborhood in Lexington. A coincidence that would shatter the careful distance I'd maintained for nearly 2 years. I was driving home from a late meeting, mentally reviewing the nursery setup we'd completed the previous weekend. Jessica was 7 months pregnant, our daughter's arrival just weeks away. Traffic was light, allowing me to enjoy the early summer evening. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail. But with Jessica so close to her due date, I answered every call. "Hello, Nathan speaking." A moment of silence then. "Nathan, it's Mom." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. 2 years of no contact, and now her voice was suddenly in my car. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, my heart racing. "How did you get this number?" I asked, my voice remarkably steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "Your company website," she replied. "Nathan, why didn't you tell us?" "About your company? About the baby?" "The billboard." She must have seen it on her way to or from work, and somehow she'd found out about the pregnancy, perhaps through a mutual acquaintance or social media. "Why would I?" I asked simply. She began to cry, her sobs carrying through the speakers. "Because we're your family. We had a right to know. A right." After everything, she believed they had rights to my life, my success, my joy, without having earned them. "You gave up any rights to my life when you chose a yacht tour over my wedding day," I said. "When you spent my entire childhood making it clear that Stephanie was the priority. When you taught me that I wasn't worth showing up for." "That's not fair," she protested. "We've always been proud of you. We always knew you'd be successful. But you were never there to see it happen," I countered. "You never showed up. Not once." "We're showing up now," she insisted. "We want to be part of your life again. Your father and I have been talking about it for months. trying to figure out how to reach out. Then we saw the billboard. I sat in silence, processing her words. For months, they'd been trying to figure out how to contact their own son. Not because they missed me, not because they regretted their actions, but because they'd seen evidence of my success on a billboard. "Nathan, are you there?" "I'm here," I replied. "But I need to go." "I'll think about what you've said." I ended the call before she could respond. Sitting in that parking lot, I felt strangely calm. There had been a time when a call like that would have sent me into an emotional tailspin, desperate for reconciliation, for the family connection I'd always craved. Now I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt. Just a clear-eyed recognition of what this was. Not a genuine desire for relationship, but a reaction to my visible success. By the time I got home, my phone was filled with notifications. Voicemails from my father claiming they had always believed in me. Text messages from Stephanie, asking if I could get her fiancé's struggling real estate app, some development help, or perhaps investment opportunities. Friend requests on social media from extended family members who had ignored my wedding invitation. Former classmates and neighbors reaching out with congratulations. Jessica was waiting up, her hand resting on her rounded belly. One look at my face and she knew. "What happened?" she asked, patting the couch beside her. I showed her the messages, explained the call. "They saw the billboard," she said, understanding immediately. "And suddenly they want back in your life." "Exactly. Not when we got married. Not when we announced the pregnancy on social media months ago. When they saw visible evidence that I'm successful, that's what matters to them." Jessica's protective instinct flared. "You don't owe them anything, Nathan." Not a response, not an explanation. Certainly not access to our lives or our daughter. I took her hand, grateful for her fierce loyalty. "I know, but I need to decide how to handle this. Ignoring it won't make it go away." We talked late into the night. Jessica supported whatever decision I made, but warned against reopening wounds that had barely begun to heal. "Just remember," she said as we finally headed to bed, "they've shown you who they are repeatedly. Believe them." After days of consideration, I agreed to meet my parents for coffee at a neutral location. A cafe downtown, far from our home or my office. Jessica offered to come, but I felt this was something I needed to do alone. They arrived early, already seated when I walked in. My mother had aged visibly. New lines around her eyes and mouth. My father's hair had gone completely gray. For a moment, seeing them look older and somewhat diminished made me falter. Then I remembered Jessica's words and steeled myself. "Nathan," my mother stood, arms outstretched for a hug I didn't return. I shook their hands instead, keeping physical and emotional distance. "Thanks for meeting us," my father said, clearly uncomfortable with the formality. "We've missed you." I sat across from them, ordered a coffee from the waitress, and waited. "You look well," my mother offered. "Success suits you." "I am well," I confirmed. "My life is good." An awkward silence fell. "Your company, Horizon." "It looks impressive," my father ventured. "The billboard says you're working with major retailers now." "We are," I said simply, offering no details. "But I don't think you asked to meet to discuss my business." My mother reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand when I didn't extend it toward hers. "We want to apologize," she said, tears forming. "For missing your wedding. For not being more present." It wasn't the sweeping, genuine acknowledgement I might have once hoped for, but it was something. Still, I noticed the carefully worded phrasing. "Present?" I repeated. That's an interesting choice of words for a lifetime, of making me feel less important than Stephanie. "We never meant to make you feel that way," my father insisted. "Stephanie just needed more guidance. You were always so capable." The old excuse. The same words that had justified every inequity throughout my childhood. I was a child who needed his parents, I said calmly, not a self-sufficient roommate. They exchanged glances, clearly not having expected this level of directness. We're sorry you felt abandoned, my mother said. The classic non-apology. Sorry for my feelings, not for their actions. I didn't feel abandoned, I corrected. I was abandoned. You chose to skip my wedding for a yacht tour. That's not a feeling. It's a fact. Another uncomfortable silence. Well, my father finally said, leaning forward with what I recognized as his problem-solving expression. What matters is moving forward. The past is the past. We'd like to put all this behind us. We're going to be grandparents soon. That changes everything. And there it was. The assumption that I would simply fold. That the prospect of them having access to my child would overcome 2 years of no contact and a lifetime of emotional neglect. That's the thing, I said, my voice steady. The past isn't just the past when the same patterns continue. You're here now because you saw a billboard showing I'm successful, not because you miss me, not because you've genuinely reflected on our relationship. You want access to my life now, that it looks impressive from the outside. That's not fair, my mother protested. We're proud of you. We always have been. Pride isn't love, I replied. And it certainly isn't respect. Both of those require seeing someone for who they are, not what they achieve. My father looked frustrated. What exactly do you want from us, Nathan? We're here. We're trying. I took a deep breath. What I want is acknowledgement of the real pattern of behavior, not just missing my wedding. I want a genuine apology for the lifetime of favoritism and neglect, and I want changed behavior moving forward. Without those things, there's no foundation for a relationship. They seemed genuinely shocked by my clarity and resolve. We can't change the past, my mother said defensively. No, but you can acknowledge it honestly, I replied. And you can commit to different behavior in the future. If you can't do that, then nothing has really changed, has it? My father's expression hardened slightly. You seem determined to punish us. I shook my head. This isn't about punishment. It's about boundaries. I've built a life filled with people who value and respect me. I'm not willing to compromise that peace by letting in relationships that don't meet that standard. The meeting ended shortly after. They hadn't expected me to have conditions, to require accountability. They'd assumed their presence alone would be enough, that I was still the child desperate for any crumb of their attention. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. Stephanie, what did you say to them? She demanded without preamble. Mom's crying. Dad's upset. What is wrong with you? I stated my boundaries, I replied calmly. Your boundaries are ridiculous. They're our parents. You don't get to set conditions on family. That's where you're wrong, I said. That's exactly what healthy people do. So what? You're just going to keep our parents from meeting their grandchild because of your ego. This isn't about ego, Stephanie. It's about protecting my family, my wife and daughter, from the same patterns that hurt me. You always have to be so dramatic, she snapped. Some of us had real problems growing up, you know. Not everyone could be perfect like you. The irony of her statement, framing my independence and achievement as a weapon against me, just as our parents had, wasn't lost on me. I'm sorry you see it that way, I said. I hope someday you can understand. I hung up, knowing it would probably be another long stretch before I spoke to my sister again. The difference was that now, that knowledge didn't hurt. It was simply a fact of life, one I had accepted and moved beyond. In the weeks following the meeting with my parents, I felt a surprising sense of peace. I had stated my boundaries clearly and calmly. The ball was now in their court. For the first time in my life, I wasn't anxiously awaiting their approval or attempting to manage their emotions. I was simply living my life on my terms. Jessica and I focused on preparing for our daughter's arrival. We finished the nursery, a sunny room with a nature theme, filled with books and a handcrafted rocking chair that Robert had made for his granddaughter. We attended birthing classes, installed the car seat, packed and repacked the hospital bag. My parents made sporadic attempts at contact. My mother sent a generic baby gift from an online registry with a card that made no mention of our conversation or any of the issues I'd raised. My father called once to awkwardly ask if I needed anything for the baby, as if material support was what had been missing from our relationship. I maintained my position calmly but firmly. What I need is acknowledgement and changed behavior, I told him. When you're ready for that conversation, I'm open to it. On a warm July morning, Jessica went into labor. 17 hours later, our daughter Lily Marie entered the world. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfection with Jessica's dark hair, and what appeared to be my eyes. Holding her for the first time was transformative. Looking down at her tiny face, I made a silent promise. You will never doubt that you are loved, exactly as you are. You will never feel like you have to earn your place in this family. You are already enough, just by being you. Jessica watched us from the hospital bed, her exhausted face radiant. You're already an amazing father, she said softly. Jessica's parents arrived shortly after, bearing flowers and tears of joy. Robert embraced me, whispering, "Nothing better than this feeling. Is there, son?" Marie took photos of the three of us, already planning a gallery wall in their home. We settled into life as a family of 3. The early weeks were a blur of midnight feedings, diaper changes, and staring in wonder at our daughter. Horizon continued to thrive under Derek's day-to-day management, while I took a generous paternity leave, something I made standard company policy for all employees. When Lily was 6 weeks old, I received an email from my mother that surprised me. Unlike her previous attempts at contact, this one acknowledged specific incidents from my childhood and my wedding. She expressed genuine regret for the patterns of favoritism and for missing my wedding. She didn't make excuses or attempt to minimize the impact. She simply apologized. I showed Jessica the email. "What do you think?" I asked. She read it carefully. It seemed sincere, different from before. "I think so too," I agreed. "I'm just not sure what to do with it." "You don't have to decide right away," she reminded me. "Take your time." A week later, I responded, thanking my mother for her honesty and suggesting we try a video call so they could see Lily. The call was awkward, but less tense than our coffee meeting had been. My parents cooed appropriately over Lily, and my mother asked thoughtful questions about how we were doing. Over the following months, we established a cautious, limited relationship. They would video call once every 2 weeks to see Lily. Occasionally, they would visit for short periods, always at a park or restaurant, never at our home. I was clear about my boundaries. No comparing Lily to other grandchildren. No undermining our parenting decisions. No bringing up past issues without being willing to address them honestly. Stephanie remained distant, refusing to accept the new dynamics. She had married Bradley in an extravagant ceremony at the plaza that was featured in several society pages. When my parents mentioned having seen Lily, she would change the subject or make cutting remarks. I didn't push for reconciliation. Some relationships, I had learned, could not be forced into health. As Lily approached her first birthday, Horizon reached a $100 million valuation. We were revolutionizing supply chain management globally, with clients on 6 continents and offices in 7 cities. The work was challenging and fulfilling, made more meaningful by knowing I was building a legacy for my daughter. Jessica returned to her marketing firm part-time, excelling as always while balancing motherhood. We found a wonderful nanny who became like extended family. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the chaos that comes with a curious toddler. My relationship with my parents remained carefully managed. Civil, but not close. They made efforts, imperfect, but noticeable. They remembered my birthday for the first time in years. They asked about Horizon without immediately turning the conversation to Stephanie's life. Small steps, but significant, given our history. One evening, as Jessica and I sat on our back deck watching Lily toddle around the yard, I reflected on the journey of the past few years. If someone had told me on our wedding day that this would be my life now, I'm not sure I would have believed them, I said. Jessica squeezed my hand. You built this life. You had the courage to walk away from people who didn't value you and toward those who did. That's no small thing. We built it, I corrected her. I couldn't have done any of this without you believing in me. The truth was, the painful absence of my family at our wedding had been a turning point. Not just in setting boundaries, but in truly understanding my own worth. I had stopped seeking validation from dry wells and started nurturing the relationships that fed my soul. I watched Lily giggling as she discovered a dandelion, her whole face lighting up with wonder. That was the legacy I wanted to leave. Not just a successful company or material comfort, but a child who grew up knowing she was loved unconditionally, who never questioned her place or value in our family. The journey from that empty church aisle to this peaceful backyard had been difficult but necessary. I had learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by love, respect, and showing up. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who don't value you. That creating boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for building a life of authenticity and peace. Most importantly, I learned that the approval I had sought my entire life could only truly come from within. No achievement, no success, no external validation could fill the void that self-acceptance ultimately filled. So to those of you watching who might see your own family dynamics reflected in my story, remember this. You are worthy of love and respect, exactly as you are. You deserve relationships that celebrate rather than diminish you. And sometimes, the family that matters most is the one you choose and build, not the one you're born into. If you've ever had to make difficult choices about family relationships, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. How did you find the courage to set boundaries? What helped you heal? Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult circumstances, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their journey. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful destinations.